So with a lot of talk recently in regards to Spider-Man's future within and without the MCU, and of course going and joining Sony's own universe, we're going to talk about what the deal for Spider-Man is after the third film. So let's get into all of these details. So as some of you remember, and you guys pointed this out when everything happened with the fallout, I made a video like a year and a half before that happened saying that that exact thing would happen, and how I reached that conclusion was just looking through what they're saying, reading beyond it and reading between the lines of what everybody says and trying to really understand and come up with a conclusion. And that's how I came up with the conclusion that there'd be contractual dispute and Sony would pull Spider-Man out due to wanting money. And that's what ended up happening. So what I'm doing here is I'm looking at the same situation. I've gone through and read through about 10 different articles in the last 2 days, and I'm going to tell you guys what exactly happens with Spider-Man and what's the MCU deal consist of right now, what's changed, and what does the future hold for Spider-Man after the third film. So first thing is first, Sony is developing a multitude of projects based on Spider-Man characters. The difference now and going down the road is they can include Spider-Man, whereas to Venom 1 they could not due to contractual things that were happening behind the scenes. This is why they were kind of ambiguous to the existence of, the Daily Bugle and Spider-Man and Venom and all that. But now that's changed, and of course the major change happened after those disputes and a new contract was brought up. Now, ever since then, we've seen certain changes that are happening, such as Morbius openly acknowledging the MCU. And of course, going down the road, we know Tom Holland is in fact going to appear in these films. And again, this is the major change right now. So when you read what they've been saying, recently they said, they want to work together and it's a win-win scenario for everybody involved. What you need to understand is that now Disney is putting up money to make the Spider-Man film, and they're getting back a cut. Sony is also putting up amount, and of course they're getting back a cut. Now, we don't know if there's details that go further into it, whether, Sony's going to get some piece of the pie if, let's say, Spider-Man appears in Deadpool 3 for some reason, right? Do they get a small percentage of that because it's their character? Again, we don't know about this, but you can speculate that now that Disney has a direct stake into funding these films that use Spider-Man, Spider-Man 3, that somehow something's got to go back and forth. Again, we don't know, but that much would make some sort of sense because Sony wants more money. So when it comes to the deal after Spider-Man 3, we know that he has one more appearance left in the MCU. And that's not just the third film, it's some appearance somewhere. Now, I'm going to guarantee that that appearance has to happen within 3 years. And this is a very deliberate number because that would kind of line up with the previous productions of Spider-Man. You have to get the film out within 4 years, and the development time and when you have to have a cast and shooting is within 3. So I'm going to assume that that goes back and forth with the whole deal with Marvel Studios. So they're not just sitting there going, well, I guess we'll keep Tom Holland around for, 6 years from now, and then we'll have him have his final appearance. That's not going to happen. So they're going to have to use him, I guarantee, within 3 years, which means that you're getting some sort of big team-up movie or something to use that Spider-Man appearance somewhere. Again, this makes sense. Logistically makes sense. If you look at old contracts and what we know, this all makes sense. So let's say they use them for New Avengers coming in 2023 or maybe 2024, because obviously 2021 is the next Spider-Man movie, so you give it 3 years, maybe 4 if something happens, if there's, depending on if it's in development or has to be an appearance officially made on screen. We don't know really the details behind that, but let's say that happens. Again, he's then technically done. After the third film, the two will be going back to conversation. Now, what I guarantee is going to happen this time is one and the other are not going to shut each other out from the conversations like we know Sony shut out Disney when they were trying to talk to them to try to do something while Far From Home was, in the post-production. Sony didn't want to talk to them. They were like, no, we're taking Spider-Man, that's it. This time they have to because legally there's money being shared. So during the course of the next year, and maybe year and 6 months, that they're going to be developing the next Spider-Man movie and doing the press tours and all that, they will be having conversations. These are important because these conversations will dictate how the future goes. Now, my assumption will be, and this is just my assumption, quote me on this, 2-3 years from now, but that right around the time that the third film comes out, we will officially get an announcement of an extended deal. A deal that will see Tom Holland continue to appear in Sony's films, and he will continue to exist in the MCU. In that case, his next appearance will be, like I said, within 3 years, but after that, they will continue to develop it, thus giving Sony a little bit of time to integrate Tom Holland's Spider-Man into their universe and kind of give him a break in the MCU while he has one cameo appearance, and then do another trilogy, while also Sony gets the benefit from this by having people miss Spider-Man and going, well, where's Spider-Man? Oh, I guess I gotta go watch, Spider-Woman or Kraven or whatever Sony's developing. Again, it's a you scratch my back, I scratch yours. That's the scenario they're in. And if you read what all the interviews are saying, how they're approaching this scenario, what everybody is saying, how they're talking about the other studio, you can tell that things have changed, and they've changed for the better. And specifically, the big thing that you have to understand is they've again taken note of what the fans are saying. Remember, it was us fans that weren't happy with TASM that got that series to end because we didn't like the direction of it. We wanted them in the MCU, and now we got it, and Sony tried to back out, and the fans were so vocal. Bob Iger was like, hey, Tom, you want to talk about this? Tom Rothman from Sony, and he was like, well, I guess we have to. And again, Disney got what they wanted. Spider-Man in the MCU, and they got a share of the profits, and they put up a little share of their own. Again, this is how it works, and you have to understand that this benefits everybody. Now, when I say this benefits everybody, I'm talking about every single side of this equation. Nobody is losing here. So going in a different direction after Spider-Man 3, like fully pulling that character out, would be absolutely one of the worst decisions Sony could make, because again, the fans are more tuned in now. And again, there's going to be a vocal minority that's like, well, we don't care about MCU Spider-Man, but the majority has voted with their dollar, with their money on where Spider-Man is, and if he's in the MCU, that brings interest. And I guarantee you, if they don't come up with a new deal, you will start to see another storm of things getting out of hand again. Now, the way the MCU is going with the multiverse and everything, it could also go the way that, everything is connected in the multiverse way, which honestly is probably what they're hoping that the fans buy into. And this is a smart scenario, because once you introduce the multiverse with the second Doctor Strange movie, of course, the people involved with that one makes sense the direction they're going in. Again, it opens you up to the quote-unquote Spider-Verse and the Venom-verse. And again, if you look at the comics, that's something that they've made very apparent and a known quantity is those two, names, right? It's almost like when Marvel Studios came out and said, you don't know the Avengers right now, but within 3 years, Avengers and Avengers Assemble will be a known quantity. People laughed at them because they're toys and Avengers was more or less a dead brand, but you look at it. They've made a point to make sure that these names are ingrained into your head when it comes to the comics. And if there was major disputes again with these two, Disney, we know they don't have a problem going, yeah, you guys own Venom, right? You got the Venom movie? Guess what? We're going to pull all Venom products. We'll pull the toys. We don't care. We'll pull the comics. We did a Fantastic Four and X-Men, and those were selling through the roof. Again, there's more to this because they're willing to work together. And the contract dispute that happened before will not go public this time, because it will be a very clear-cut statement between both of them announcing what the partnership is. Either it's officially ended in a press release or it's officially continuing. And I guarantee you, it will continue because it needs to continue.